You are infinitely loved by an infinite God. Everyone you love is infinitely loved by an infinite God, way more than you could ever love them. Everyone you hate is infinitely loved by an infinite God, way more powerfully than you could ever hate them. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Love Your Unlovable podcast. I'm your host, the wildly unlovable, yet infinitely loved Eileen Chevalier.
I never knew you'd come in the summer. I never knew you'd fall like rain. I never knew you'd have to suffer. I never knew you'd know such pain. But now I know you are indeed the most precious lady ever I seen. Just can't believe it's you I prayed for so many nights before I'd sleep. I never knew your beauty shaped me. I never knew it'd make me weep to hold your hand and walk beside you, to hear you laugh, to kiss your cheek. Precious angels to come on down and marry me.
All right. Well, welcome to another episode of Love Your Unlovable Spouse Edition. So we thought it would be fun this episode to kind of bring you right into the heart of the conflict that embroiled our early marriage, and right into the moment that I created an unnecessary world of pain. And anyway, we're going to tell you about the night I proposed to Eileen, which, oh my gosh, there's so much to unpack. So when I met Eileen in June of 2004, I I already had a concert lined up in Baltimore, which was kind of where I was living. I was living in Maryland. I had lived in Baltimore for years. I went to college there, and I had released an album in December of 2023 and performed the release show at a theater in Baltimore called Patterson Theater. And
Mike Roy the Felder show?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can watch that entire show on YouTube. Thank you to Jeff and Drew and Paul and everybody that helped make that possible. But on the back of that show going really well, I was offered another show. Well, so I had that set up for July 30th. And I hadn't even met Eileen when I set that show up. And then in the ensuing months, not only did I meet her, I fell in love with her. I moved to North Carolina and we decided to get married. Now, we had decided to get married. We had talked about it a lot at that point, but there was no official proposal up to that point.
I did not have a ring.
There was no ring. I hadn't put a ring on it.
Yeah.
As they like to say. So in my naive ego...
Well, you just didn't know me.
I didn't know her. I literally only knew her for a couple of months. So I was sort of just living my life just as I had been with a fiance, So like... There's a lot of layers to this, but we're going to bring you into the moment, the actual moment, because there's audio recorded. There's actually an audio recording of that entire concert.
So I actually want to back up.
Oh, let's back up.
Let's back up just a minute.
Okay.
Because when we were talking on the phone.
Yeah.
Because you were still writing new songs. So like we started talking on the phone. I told you about my heart issue.
Yeah.
You started writing Old Heart.
Yes.
And
yes. So the first song I wrote
after you met me,
that was inspired by Eileen, was not really for Eileen.
Yeah.
It's a song called An Old Heart, which is on Shop Friction, which you can listen to that. But I actually repurposed her heart condition into the body of an aging, dying man.
Yeah.
So it was just inspired by Eileen. It wasn't written for Eileen.
Right. But that was really neat because it was the first time I got to hear you create a song.
Yeah.
Like you would sing parts of it to me on the phone. And then right after you moved down to North Carolina, I think, you were like, Eileen, come out to the front porch. So my parents live in an old farmhouse. So at the time they weren't living there. I was living there.
Yeah.
And I had lived there alone, moved to New York, moved back. I was pretty much living there alone. I think one of Elise's friends lived there for a little while. And then when you moved down, I moved in with my parents and you lived there with him.
Right.
We were there alone, which was often the case. And you brought me out to the front porch and you played me I Never Knew.
I Never Knew.
Yeah. And it was amazing. And it was so sweet. I mean... And you were, I guess, really nervous. You were like, your leg was like going and...
Of course I was nervous.
Oh, man, it was so good.
So that's definitely, I Never Knew is definitely the first song I wrote for Eileen.
Yeah.
And
it was really good.
It's a short
song.
So
sweet. And anyway, of course, it was like...
I Never Knew You'd Come
my
in Summer.
favorite song. Anyway, so then...
There's some good lines
you played
in
it
that song.
It's amazing.
I never knew you'd fall like rain.
Yeah.
Dig into the lyrics.
It's really good. And you played it for my parents. Like you went over there.
Did I really?
You played it, at my parents' house.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing what you forget.
Yeah, and I think so my parents didn't really, when I told my parents that I was going to get married.
You didn't even know my last name.
I didn't know your last name.
You got to tell that story.
Oh my gosh.
So Eileen came up to DC. We kind of reconvened in DC at my parents' place. I took her on a date to, right when I picked you up from the airport, we went to the Hirshhorn Museum in DC and looked at some art.
Yeah.
You wouldn't let me hold your hand.
Nope.
I tried Sly style to hold her hand and she knew, she could sense, and she was having none of it. And then that night,
I was not ready for that level of commitment.
no.
Give me a day and I'll commit my life to you. But my hand that day, no.
The next morning, should we go ahead and tell all these stories? These are great stories.
Oh, they're so good.
It's a little outside of the scope of what we. Let's just do it. Let's just tell the stories.
Okay.
So we had a great night. I had a plan for the next day, but so Eileen says that the night. That night, the very first night that I picked her up from the airport, that she knew. I came downstairs after dinner and like getting ready for bed. I was staying upstairs, obviously, and I had just kind of like a sleeping t-shirt on.
Can I read it?
Oh, do you want to read it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you pull it up on your phone real quick?
Yeah, where is it?
It's on my website.
Okay.
Yeah, so there was this moment right before I started grad school. I was like, I know, I'll write all the stories of like what it was. Because I started grad school in 13. That's weird.
I'll let you find it.
11.
I'll keep
11.
setting up the story.
No. I want to read it. Okay. Mike's picking me up from the airport. You gonna just read this section?
Yeah.
Oh, the flowers. Mike is picking me up from the airport, so I waste no time getting off the plane and out to the front of Reagan International. I'm wearing a black halter and my favorite skirt. Voila! This one right here. One I bought years before from an Indian clothing store, wine-colored, with beading on the front. Flowing down to drag the dirty curb, where cars are pulling in to pick up the recently arrived. I carry my small yellow vinyl carry-on and hope that this man I've only met once 4 weeks earlier will recognize me in a sea of happy homecomings. But my smile outshines them all when he swings open the passenger door inches from my eager hands. I climb in and he offers me a bouquet of flowers, freshly picked from the roadside on his way to meet me, which, given the heat and lack of a vase, is a terrible idea. They are all shriveling and bent over, exhausted. An obvious contrast to our swelling excitement. Here we are, finally, close enough to smell one another, able to see the smiles we so often heard. Those 4 intervening weeks have been a blur of ever-extending phone calls. We find ourselves agreeing often, including an agreement that we would never date each other. See, that's why I cannot hold your hand. That's so datey.
So datey.
I always hated dating. By the time I was allowed to start dating, I was really past ready to be married. Oh, it says I was ready to be married, past ready, in fact.
Just read it.
Just read it. I already did the writing.
That's right.
I think I was born ready. Commitment was the easy part for me. The hard part was dating. What I definitely did not want was a boyfriend. I had had plenty already, which was helpful in its way. I knew what I could take and what I couldn't live without. I knew my aversions to tall men, and that those in search of God, not in search of God, inevitably tire of my own pursuit. And then there was the undeniable attraction to creative, confident fellows who found life fascinating, especially the Irish ones. So along comes this pale-faced, red-headed, perfect 4 inches taller than me, traveling around singing the soulful songs he'd written. Interesting. Then I'd find out we had a lot in common. Our backgrounds, our beliefs, our perspectives, and life goals. 2 weeks later, we're talking every day for hours, finding out all the things we have in common. Of course, we both want to find that someone. Who doesn't want that, really? So we both start thinking that maybe this is the one and decide to meet up in D.C., where I'm traveling for a video shoot anyway. He grew up in Southern Maryland, so he drives down from Rhode Island, and I fly up to meet him. There's just enough time for a museum visit, for sure, before heading to his parents' house for dinner, lounging in the yard, and a quick tuck-in before bed. It's the tuck-in that does it for me. Mike is wearing a thin sleeping shirt, and I can just make out a beautiful tattoo on his left bicep. Having a special weakness for nice arms and beautiful tattoos, I asked to get a better look, and then he explains why he got it. And he explains why I got it. Then the clincher. He describes the tattoo he really wants. At the top of his back, there is another tattoo of an abstracted sun. Below this, as if basking in its light, he pictures a scientific-style drawing of a rose bush, with the largest 2 rosebuds labeled as his wife and himself, and the smaller ones labeled as his children. Sold. It is clear to me that whatever we may have thought we were doing, we have actually spent a month putting one another on trial, allowing ourselves to be questioned as thoroughly as possible in an attempt to discover if we could love one another. We have been witness and judge and have examined and cross-examined. All that is left for me to know is that my love will not be given in vain. To know that I am with someone whose commitment is as sure as mine. A gigantic tattoo seems like an excellent indication of that. How much did he already love his family to come up with such a beautiful way of expressing that love for them? How could I not want this with all my heart? How could I not want to be the one who gets to make those little rosebuds with him? I am his for the having and the holding.
Wow. So she's a really great writer. And that's why you're going to want to read the Mike and Eileen book separate from this podcast, because she has a way with words. Yeah, you're an amazing writer.
Thanks, honey. Okay, so so we are in love. I go down to North Carolina. We decide, over the course of like 2 days that we should definitely...
You go down to North Carolina?
We were in D.C.
Oh, right.
No, we're already in D.C., right?
Okay,
so
So in D.C., we basically decide the very next day, we verbally agree that this is happening. Like, there's like no really other way to say it. Like, we both knew.
Yeah.
And there's another passage in the book that's equally compelling that you talk about the swimming test and the quarry. And I don't know if you want to just read it.
No. Well, I've read enough.
So she heads back down to North Carolina. I'm not really living anywhere. I'm in that post-college, pre-career stage. I had lived with friends. I had lived back with my parents. I had traveled.
You were just waiting to live with me.
I was waiting to live with you. I had not a whole lot of possessions to my name. Anyway, so I moved down a few weeks later, maybe a few days later.
No, we got to get to the part where I'm telling my parents. So I go home. I think you tell your mom immediately.
I tell them that night, the night you leave. I was like, what'd you guys think of her? And they were like, oh, I don't remember what they said. I was like, good, because she's going to be your daughter-in-law. I was like... That's how I told my family.
Well, I got home so late that night.
Yeah.
Oh, it's awful. I was so tired. So I go to dinner at my parents, and I'm like, I'll just work it into the conversation.
I'm getting married. Pass the peas.
That is just like not something you work into a conversation. I don't know what I was thinking. So we finished dinner, and I'm like, okay, guys, can you just like come in the living room? We'll sit down. There's like something I want to tell you. And they're like, what? So tell them that I met this guy and I'm in love with him and we're going to get married. And they asked me what your name was. And I was like, Mike. And they were like, what's his last name? And I was like, well, it doesn't really matter.
Of the Southern Isles.
Names. I know.
We always joke in Frozen.
Oh, it was so great when we started watching Frozen. We were like, this is us. And they were like, oh no, he's the bad guy.
Yeah.
But
he was redhead.
Yeah, it really was. I really didn't know. I mean, I had an idea. So a lot of stuff we didn't know about each other.
So then I moved down. I meet your parents.
They love you.
I live at the farm.
I think you're the best thing ever.
You live with them, right?
I moved in with them.
You moved from the farm to their house in town. Yeah. I live at the farm. We are hanging out every day, obviously.
Yeah.
But I've got this show already scheduled, right? That I'd scheduled months and months ahead of time. I'm not anywhere near my bandmates. I'm, 5 hours away. So I'm looking for a job. I think I get a job right away, pretty much. Yeah. And we're trying to figure everything out. So anyway, I invite Eileen's parents to come up for this concert. And keep in mind, this was my career aspirations. I was going to be a singer, songwriter, performer. This is what I was going to do. So I figured just go ahead and get everybody used to it now. So I invite, I think I drove up, you and I drove up early and then they drove up separately. Yeah. And,
well, and so also I'm super duper insecure. So you're not the first musician I dated. So, I spend a lot of time watching
boys play songs.
Yeah, and practice.
Oh yeah.
Like rehearsals. And
Sure.
so, there's
It's
a
a
lot
big
of
part
like
of it.
behind the scenes, and
Yeah.
I mean, rehearsals are free and it's fun, and but you basically kicked me out of the house.
So I had in my
which
mind,
was so horrible for me.
So from my perspective, I had in mind that this was like a big surprise for everybody. Like everything about this was a big surprise. And for whatever reason, that's how I conceived of it. And so I wanted it to be a surprise. I don't know. I just didn't really conceive of it any other way. So I didn't invite Eileen downstairs to our one ramshackle practice. Because
But you didn't like introduce me to anyone.
I didn't.
Either,
I know.
And so I just felt like you were
took that
ashamed
as,
of me.
Yeah, you took that as me being
because
ashamed
you were
of you.
like, get out of the house, and here are all these people coming down. I don't want to introduce them to you. And so I was just like, oh my gosh, you don't even want me to meet the people that you play music with, which was so weird and just felt very like, what kind of relationship have you had with them that would make it awkward
right
for us to meet?
Yeah.
So it set up a really horrible dynamic.
Oh, yeah.
Prior to the show. So I'm like walking around with your mom and she's trying to tell me stuff. I mean, your mom is so sweet.
Yeah, and she was trying to
telling me
encourage
stories
you
and,
that,
But I was the whole time I'm like on this walk with her because you make us leave. I'm just like, all I can think about is you and not being there and trying to like understand why that's happening, which I can't really process because I'm also trying to talk to, my future mother-in-law. Anyway,
yeah.
So that was a lot. So then we go to bed, and then the next day's the concert.
Yeah.
Wait, so can I tell my perspective?
Of course.
Okay.
That's why we're both here.
Yeah. So, I mean, I pretty much figured this out, right? That he's going to propose to me.
Yes.
So I think everyone else was surprised except for me. And
yeah, that was the sad thing, is that I was clearly doing all this for the optics. I wasn't doing it for Eileen. I was doing it for myself, I guess, as like a great performer. It was a
great performance. I mean, everyone loved it except for me.
we'll play it. Yeah, I succeeded. I just forgot to prioritize the right person.
No. Everyone thought it was amazing. And when I tell people, they're like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, like theoretically, it's really great. Like if maybe you had introduced me to people the night before.
Right. And
I felt like they thought I was cool, or they thought I was valuable, or they thought I wasn't just like something to be shoved out of the house and hidden.
Right.
I don't know. Or I felt like I was more important than them to you. Like I felt like they were like priority.
Right.
And your music was priority, and like this thing is first.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, I'm sitting there, and of course the whole time I'm like, okay, when is this going to happen?
Wait, you got to back up a little bit. So I got that day, before going up to Baltimore to get set up for the show, I had to go drop off and pick up a ring that was getting resized. And so Eileen covered her eyes and like got her finger measured.
Well, no, it was my idea because I was like, babe, whatever ring you have is not going to fit me.
Yeah, and it wasn't the right size. Anyway, this was a ring from my great grandmother that was passed down to my sister, and she was married but didn't have any children. Yes, that's correct. And so she was not sure she was ever going to have children, whatever. So she was like, you can have the ring, you can have great grandma's ring.
Use it.
But if I have
really mine.
But if I have a son, I would like to pass it on to my son. So, there was a caveat. Well, I had no money. I was completely broke. So my only option was to use this ring. And it was a beautiful ring, very old.
So gorgeous.
Antique, obviously. It was, from like
so
the early
beautiful.
1900s. And so we got it resized. We got it cleaned up. Eileen hadn't seen the ring, but she knew what was going on.
I knew what was going on.
I knew what was going on. Everybody
knew. I was like, babe, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. I was just like, I just don't want this to be like you propose to me and then you can't put a ring on my finger.
Right. Or it only goes like on
which is exactly what happened.
It's what really would have happened. It would have gone on like one knuckle. Anyway, so we did that. So Eileen knows what's going on. Our parents know. We've already talked to our parents. I think our siblings know.
Did your parents know you were going to propose to me?
I don't know if they knew I was going to
propose.
No, I don't
think
they knew we were getting married.
They knew, yeah, but they didn't know that you were proposing.
Correct. So
I don't think anyone but me knew.
So I've already created this super awkward dynamic between Mike's music and Mike's new bride to be, like just this awful dynamic, which is just playing on all of Eileen's fears and insecurities. which I, of course, didn't know because I
had
didn't
no
know her.
idea. Yeah.
So I'm just operating
And
on
I
my
seem
own.
pretty confident.
Yeah. And so
I mean, I'd had an art show, which was wildly successful. It was amazing.
Yeah,
and I
exactly.
ran it and had lots of people there
and I
doing
was
all
there
kinds
just
of
kind
stuff.
of helping out. And that's where the cover of the album, that photograph that is the cover of the album, that was taken at Eileen's art show, the opening.
Yeah.
By our friend Raymond.
So I get, like, a lot of people didn't understand, like, how super insecure I was because I don't appear.
You don't come across as insecure.
Yes, exactly.
And so I created this terrible dynamic. And I think we talked about it that night after practice. And I think we talked about it again in the morning.
Maybe.
And on the drive and blah, blah. Anyway, so we're headed up to Baltimore. We're getting set up. You know, I don't know how good of a job I did as we were getting set up. Probably not great.
Oh, really terrible. So I just spent, like, most of the time. Like, we went over to some bar or, like, a restaurant or something. I think it was, like, a little bar across the street. And you introduced me to some of your friends. I talked to Sarah for a while, mostly.
Gideon, Kristen.
And, you know, she was, like,
Chris.
asking me all kinds of questions about...
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, this episode's going to be
Oh.
long. We might have to cut this episode into two.
several.
This weekend that we're talking about in Baltimore really became the core of
all of our problems.
Of all of our problems.
It wasn't. It was, like,
our insecurities were already there. But
yeah, like, your evaluation of what was important and my evaluation of how important I was to you.
Yeah.
All, like, had just such strong issues in this weekend. So it is a really good one to unpack because all of our
there's
fights.
so much to unpack. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, Sarah was in every fight.
For the early going, there were some real core fights that we had for many weeks after this.
And they never got
started.
resolved. I mean, I guess they're resolved now. I don't know. We'll find out here on the podcast live.
So this show does not exist as a video like the CD release show does, but it does exist as an audio recording. And I used to have the whole thing up on Bandcamp, and I took it down.
Yeah.
But the very last song,
So
we should talk about the second to last song.
So what happened was I'm sitting there
Front row.
watching all these people, and the whole time I'm like, when is this happening? Is it, you know, I just don't know. Like, I have no idea how he's gonna play it.
Okay, first of all, that's horrible. Like, it's not right for a woman to know that they're going to get proposed to, but not know when. Like, if you already know it's going to happen, I should have told you my plan so that you could have been like, this is a horrible idea. Please don't do this. But anyway.
No, it's fine. So, no, it's a great story, babe.
Yeah, it's a great story. That's what I love to do.
So he says, at some point, he's like playing all these songs, and then he's like, all right, next I want to play you this song. It's like a new song.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, like, I know this proposal's coming. So I'm like,
this is it.
Okay, like, is it going to be I Never Knew, which would be kind of a perfect lead-in to proposing to me, or maybe Old Heart, like, because you hadn't played that one yet. And so I was like, okay, it's like this new song. So clearly it's like going to be one of these two. Hopefully, I Never Knew, because that'd be like the sweet, kind of let the audience know that you just fell in love with this person, and then you bring them up and propose to them. So he starts singing, and I'm like, I don't recognize, like, that doesn't sound like the beginning of either.
You had never heard this
songs. I'd never heard it. It wasn't on the old albums.
Nope.
Like,
you had never heard it. I had written it before meeting you, quite a bit before.
Let's just play it.
So it's on. It is.
So this
on
is
a
like
record.
me thinking that he's about to play a song about how much he's in love with me. And I'm totally insecure about this. I don't know any of his people, and it's all his people. They were the only people of mine were
your parents.
My parents.
Was
I think
Elise there?
Elise was there. I don't know if Emily was there, but
this song is called "Woman I Once Knew."
There's a woman I once knew who would kill me if she knew I was lying next to you. She is dangerous and bright, comes in quite late tonight, said she'd love me all my life, but now we're through. I was sweet to her, it's true, when we met in hat as I sat down. A couple drinks, a couple rounds. So quick, my money's down. I stood to lose, but one flip of that card and on the river came Queen of Diamonds flashing in her eyes. Walls came tumbling down. I swear I heard a sound falling from on high. Into the darkness we fled. Two men behind me want me dead. Me wondering if this woman at my side don't also want me here. But she invited me to stay. Said she wouldn't make me pay. I didn't know just what to say. I climbed into bed. Ooh, ooh, I didn't talk much all the while. You see, it wasn't quite my style. I never did have much to say that couldn't be said with just a smile. But she professed undying love, and she was precious as a dove. I kissed her eyelid and I said I'd stick around for a while.
Okay, great song, obviously.
Amazing. It's such a good song.
Okay, so
Wait, can we take a brief pause?
yeah,
Okay, we're gonna do intermission. I think it's a good time to do intermission.
Okay.
I need a minute.
yeah. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back. What a song! So unbelievable, right? What I just put. So first of all, Eileen has never heard that song. It's not only about another woman; it's about two other women,
One of which you're sleeping with.
which is fictitious. Okay, let me explain a few things. What songwriters
Felt
do.
real
A
to
lo-
me.
I'm sure it felt real to you. That's what I'm saying. Like this song. Okay, I wrote this song before I met Eileen. I was newly out of a relationship and was processing some things about a new relationship that I was thinking about being in or was in kind of halfway. And anyway, I conceived of this at work. I wrote it quickly and, you know, it wasn't
amazing.
Yeah, it wasn't.
It's a great song.
It's a cool song. I conceived of it as like this gambler who meets this gal, and she's, you know.
The music video is amazing.
West.
I can see it all.
Oh my gosh! But the fact, just like I couldn't fathom how Eileen felt by being left out of coming downstairs for a rehearsal,
Or even just being introduced.
Yeah, I couldn't fathom what it would feel like to her to hear that song, thinking that she was about to hear "I Never Knew." I mean, I still probably can't fathom that, and I'm really, really sorry that I did that to you. I mean, I know I've apologized for the way I handled the proposal over the years, but I don't
Yeah.
know that I've ever specifically apologized for that action.
Yeah.
And that idiocy, that like level of...
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, like, for me now, I'm like, oh, I mean, it's a great song. Of course you wanted to play this great song that you wrote. But for me at the time, none of your friends knew that we were getting married. And
Here I am singing about a bunch of girls you don't know who they are.
right, having this intimate relationship with them that's also casual. Anyway, so it was like I had just so many things going on in my head at that moment. Plus, my parents
Are sitting right there next to you.
who are super conservative, like
Yeah.
Southern Baptist, you don't.
Yeah, you
There's a lot of things you don't do, such as go to a bar and drink and go
gamble
sleep with someone
and sleep around. I mean,
so I'm like,
it was
oh my
just-
gosh, what are my parents thinking about this? I thought this was going to be a totally different song. And,
Yeah, of course.
Oh my gosh, I really just wanted to leave.
You probably
Like,
wanted
that
to just
is-
curl up and die.
I just wanted to leave. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, I think it would not be okay for me to leave right now, but
Wow. So there's still layers to this that I'm only sensing for the first time. Like that's
but what's
crazy.
interesting is that for me, I am just seeing it like so much from your perspective of like, it's a great song. I mean, it is a great song. The music is great. The lyrics are interesting and like you just see it all unfolding. And it's a great song. Like I totally get. Anyway, so then like right after that, he's like,
I don't think it was right after that.
it was the very.
Oh, was it really the very last song before I proposed? Wow.
So that song ends.
It's ringing out and Eileen wants to shrivel up and die. Has a ton of questions. Who are these women? How long ago was this relationship? Now, again, this is highly fictionalized account. There's a lot of things.
I didn't know how fictionalized
Exactly.
it was. I thought you were just writing from because all those other songs were about girls that you were in relationships with.
Well,
Pretty much.
yes.
So for me, I was just like,
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah,
really know
you barely knew me. So what are you going to assume from hearing that song for the first time in that moment, knowing you're about to be proposed to? I cannot fathom the levels of idiocy and lack of
naivete,
but
just-
lack of sensitivity. Both with the rehearsal the night before, how you're feeling, meeting all of my associates and friends, etc.
for the first time,
Being
like,
so
right
confused about how I handled that, and feeling like, are you ashamed of me? Like, what's your deal? Like, why are you hiding me from these people that you do music with? And oh my gosh!
Then. And which one of them is this woman
Right, there were several women performing with me that
that
night
you wouldn't introduce me to?
that I hadn't introduced Eileen to, so that definitely raised suspicions, raised red flags. I was never romantically linked with any of them, but I could have at least told her that. She didn't know
I
that.
had no idea.
So, oh my gosh. So I had written that song while I was working at UPS prior to moving to Rhode Island, so prior to the tour. I don't know if we were playing it on the tour.
I don't
met you.
remember hearing it.
But anyway,
Raleigh.
yes, it's a highly fictionalized song, but it spoke of intimacy in a way that is very more than suggestive. It wasn't truthful. It wasn't. I wasn't.
But it was.
But
Yeah.
So super uncomfortable. Eileen is sitting there next to her parents, next to my parents. I mean, they were all just sitting right there in the front row. I mean, the lack of just wherewithal, the lack of, oh gosh. I'm not a blusher really, but I mean, I used to be as a kid, but like, man, it's pretty mind-blowing. So then I proceed to thank everybody. I have all the players. I think I have like 6 people playing with me, and 5 or 6, and then they all head off to the stage, and I invite Eileen to come up on the stage. And I play a song that she's never heard before.
Yeah.
I didn't play I Never Knew. So I actually wrote this proposal song years before I met Eileen, and I knew I was going to sing this song to the woman I was going to marry. And it's a beautiful little song, and I'm proud of it. And I actually sang it at a friend's wedding. He asked me to, so that was the only time it was performed prior to me performing it that night. But I just can't. Okay, like, and here's the thing, and we're gonna get into this more after I play the song for you. But the ego, right? Like, I was so focused on my career, my people's perception of me as an artist. I felt like my star was rising, and I felt like it was so important that Eileen understand that this is my career and that, like, this is what I'm doing. And so we of course have a huge fight right after the concert. I think Eileen was doing the very best she could just to hold it together.
Yeah, I mean, it was really, like, there was a moment when you were like...
When I asked you to come up on stage, and you thought like, about...
This is...
Really not... Well, let me go ahead and play the track, and then we'll finish telling the story.
So what I wanted this episode to be about is really what
it means.
What does it mean to love someone? And I think that moment with just massive questions and insecurity.
Oh my gosh.
And you...
I was poking every insecurity.
Oh my gosh.
So hard.
Oh, because like tons of my insecurity had to do with my parents and my parents' perceptions of me. And so anyway, yeah, it's like everything. And you asked me to come up in front of all these people so that you can ask me publicly to marry you, which is like proclaiming to the world, yes, I'm going to do this. This is the guy I chose, and this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot right after singing a song about two women that you're just like, who are these women?
Oh.
How long ago was this relationship?
Yeah, and so
but
awkward. I think
that... Not only that, I just made a really interesting impression on your parents. Oh, you're just not sure how they're feeling.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
So anyway, I do think that like that's love, right?
Yeah.
Knowing that even though there are really serious questions.
Even though there's giant red flags that just came up, I am putting you on the spot.
Right, but I loved you anyway.
Man, you must have trusted God at that point. And
100%. I didn't really, like, I think when you trust God, you don't need to trust the other person. Like
when you trust me, when I trust you, I don't have to understand.
Yeah, but I knew that you were the right person, and I think,
oh my gosh,
you just choose to love someone anyway.
Yeah,
and so I did, and so I went up.
But you had so little evidence. I mean, we had known each other. This is July. We had met on June 12th.
Yeah, we had known each other for like
6 weeks.
7 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, in hindsight, it's total insanity. I mean, 20 years in to our relationship, 6 weeks will pass before I even take stock of what's happening in my, like...
Yeah.
Okay, so let me play you the song, then we'll unpack the...
also a great song.
The aftermath. Thank you, honey. Now, this is the actual recording of the night.
Lady, I was wondering if you'd marry me. I haven't got a lot to give, but darling, if you did, how happy we would be, so long as the good Lord has lived. Now I could never deserve to take your hand, but I would never let it go. This receiving of things I could never deserve has been the hardest thing I've ever known. Now I don't got a lot of money, no fortune, no fame, barely on the clothes upon my back, true. But darling, just like the sparkle in this here diamond ring, there would be no good thing you would lack. For as sure as I can work with my own two hands, and as sure as the sun does rise and fall, the good Lord will hold us in his mighty right hand, and unto you both I'll give my all. Now you must take this time to decide if I am the dear one that you seek. Cause you're the most beautiful thing I've seen with my eyes. I'm held captive, I cannot speak.
No.
Oh my God, I'm gonna cry. Go, Mike!
So, the crowd erupts, and Eileen is just so confused.
I mean, it's very sweet, and it's true, and I think that's part of the problem, right? Like, these two totally different understandings of you are happening in my brain, because I know that you love me.
You do now.
I mean, I think I knew that you loved me, and that like you wrote that song before you knew me, because you knew that whoever you married, that's how you would love them. And I think love can be really idealized, where you're like, oh, it's going to be so wonderful, and we're going to be there for each other, and all of these things. And we weren't at first, but you still loved me that way, even though you didn't yet, even though it wasn't like actualized or realized. And I think like the same for me, like I loved you, but I didn't know how to love you at the same time, But it's really like, I haven't listened to that in a while, but it's so good. And it's so true. Like, that's still how you love me. So thank you.
I love you so much.
And I love you so much more than I did. And I think more than I thought I could love anyone. Like, I didn't have the concept of how to love someone the way that I love you now.
I'll use tears to slick it down. I've got this one troublesome hair that keeps one above. I mean, where do you even... So, I'm a passionate person, obviously, right? A very artistic person, a person that wears his heart on his sleeve. And 100%, when I wrote that song for my future wife, I knew absolutely that I was going to love you that way. And I knew I was going to commit, and I was going to give everything I would. but I had no clue what I was putting you through with not introducing you to my bandmates, hiding you away, and then this big reveal at the concert right after that song that you had never heard, never interacted with, never processed with me, never talked to me about. Obviously the crowd went nuts, and there was a good crowd there that night, and like, so sort of it just sort of swept. There was another band coming on after that night, so I had to kind of give Eileen a kiss and then immediately start packing and getting everything off the stage, because the other band had to put all their gear up on the stage and set up.
Yeah, and so of course, like, my family wanted to congratulate me, and they gave me hugs, and then, you know, like, you, I guess, went to pack up, and
but you felt abandoned. Everybody's leaving, filing
left.
out.
Like, I was waiting because I thought you would
come back out and
see me.
Yeah, hug you and hold you, and done what I should have done, which was go out to where all the people were leaving. And, well, people weren't leaving because the show wasn't ending, but I don't know. I honestly don't remember.
And I think, too, like, I just needed a minute with you.
That's a lot to process. I mean, that's a lot to process. First
of
all,
I didn't really want to talk to any of these people anymore.
Right. And you come backstage, and I'm hugging other people.
Well, first I'm just, like, waiting and waiting.
Right.
And no one's around, and you hadn't taken me backstage yet, which is weird, because usually I'm backstage before shows, and I, like, know where everything is, but I don't know where anything is at your show, and so I'm, like, wandering around trying to find you, and I find you when you're hugging one of the girls that's in the band. I'm just like...
Right, which couldn't be more...
Who is this? Why are you
hugging
with
this
her
person?
And hugging her? Like, I've been waiting for you.
Right. And because I set up this whole thing with the night before, not introducing you, you're just so confused.
Yeah.
But I couldn't see any of that at the time. In my world at that moment, I was just like, I just crushed it out there. Like, you should be stoked because my career is taking off. Like, this, I just played for like 200 or 300 people, whatever, I don't know.
They had an amazing time.
They had an amazing time. They're all going to be talking about it, and I'm so in my own head, in my own world, so focused on my goal, and I just figure you should be thrilled. So you come back, and you're like, hey, do you have a minute? Can we talk somewhere? And we find this small little kind of room backstage, and you know, you start trying to explain to me how you're feeling, but I'm on cloud 9, and I'm just like,
mad.
Well, I get mad.
Because you're like, why aren't you?
I'm like, why are you not like getting with the vibe? Like, the vibe is celebratory, and you're just like, you know. And so there was just this huge clash of like, you're hurting and so confused. I am just like riding high. And like just literally baffled as to why you're not like feeling amazing. I'm like, we just got engaged.
Well, and I'm so desperate for confirmation.
Right, because
like,
I set that up.
Yeah, you sang this song to me, but like, I need to know that that's real.
And
you know?
Right. You've known me for 6 weeks,
like,
7 weeks.
You clearly wrote that before you even knew me. Like, how do I know that this is actually happening? How do I know that you really mean this for me?
And based on
everything that
just happened in the last 24 hours, I need a little assurance.
Yeah.
Not to mention Sarah, who you mentioned at the beginning.
Oh, that was the next day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we'll save that for another episode, because this one's already pretty long. But
I mean, I didn't think that I didn't think a thing about her that night. Really, it was just like the song and you hugging that girl when I came backstage after I'd been waiting for you. And then you being mad that not just
I was
immediately
mad
being
that you
like,
needed
something.
Yes, I was mad that you needed something from me, because I mean, something every person who's performed, even in like a school play or, you know, whatever, like when you finish, you're high, but you're also low. Like you're also drained. You just kind of left everything on the stage. Mm-hmm. And so I was I need you.
Yeah.
Like, I need you to support me in this moment. I don't need you needing me to be something for you. And I had zero practice putting aside what I need and being what you need.
Yeah.
I've gotten really a whole lot better at that. But at that time,
I think me too. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
We both.
That was one of the things I was saying in the last episode, was like, that was like, it was Aubin coming along that started to train me how to put myself way down the list. Like this is what it's first is what Eileen needs, then it's what the baby needs, then it's what my job demands. Then it's like, you know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
had no practice in that. Like,
Yeah.
I was freewheeling. I mean, I was living here, living
I mean,
there.
I think there's a healthy balance, but yeah, like you just couldn't even see it from my perspective.
I couldn't.
And
so I leaned in and was like, I need you to not need me right now. And you're just like, I need so much. You have so much to explain. And I'm just like, what in the world? And we're yelling at each other, and both.
Well, and I think that we do people interact with each other differently. Like some people are like really passive aggressive, and
that's not our style.
No, we're just gonna be aggressive. We're just gonna...
we're aggressive.
Yeah, we're just gonna like lay it out there.
Yeah.
And I think that for me, I'm trying to go into this relationship, and I'm like, I need to know.
I need some answers.
I need to know that this is going to be okay.
Yeah. Which, how could you possibly? I mean, it took years for me to prove what I said in that song, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember a beautiful day that you texted me out of the blue. We were living at Beaver Creek, and you just texted me out of the blue. I don't know that it was our anniversary. Maybe it was. Or maybe it was the anniversary of the July 30th when I proposed to you.
Oh, it was probably when I was writing the Mike and Eileen book.
You were writing the Mike and Eileen book.
So I was listening back to the songs.
And you texted me this super sweet series of texts. And, like, honestly, it meant the world to me because I felt like
That's what you wanted then.
Well, that's what I wanted then. But also, like, it meant so much to me that you got it. Like, that you got it with whatever 10... I mean, we were at Beaver Creek in 16, so at least 12 years of a relationship at that point. And so with that much proof, really doing a deep listen and I think you were writing the words down in your book, in your journal. And you were just like, babe, you meant everything you said in that song. And I did. Yeah. I really did. And I did that night, but I didn't realize the situation that I had created in your heart and in your mind. And I wanted you, but I was so focused on everybody else and putting on a show. And I didn't know you, and I didn't know how to take care of you. And I just felt like so blindsided by the fact that you were telling me I was doing it all wrong. And but this is a cool thing about God, and God doesn't cause painful situations. God walks with us in painful situations. But one thing that is really true about God is he loves the moment way down the line when you get to see the fruit of the hard situation. And so like 12 or 13 or 14 years later, you just breaking down crying, realizing that I meant every word that I said that night, even though I'd only known you 6 weeks. But now you'd seen 12 years of evidence, and you got it, and you were like weeping, and you were texting me, and it was such a sweet moment. And sometimes it takes a long time for you to get that type of a release, because
well,
sometimes
how do you know someone loves you?
Right. How do you know someone loves you?
How do you know?
What
Because
is love?
if you loved me then and you stopped,
I would have put you first.
And you left, but like, if you had loved me perfectly and wonderfully,
right,
and then left me,
right, is it love?
When it got hard,
right.
Did you really love me then?
Right. Great question.
So, what does it mean?
What does it mean
to love someone? And I think,
what does it mean to love someone? That's this episode.
I
don't think we're going to give you an answer.
You thought we were going to answer that question.
We're not into answering questions.
No, we like to ask questions.
We do like to ask questions, but I think we'll wrap up this episode. We'll do another episode. There's a lot to unpack after that. But see, one thing that I really want to hammer home is that I had no idea the atomic bomb of confusion and psychic confusion and
how insecure I was.
Like I just
so insecure. You didn't understand that about me.
I just blew up all your insecurities, like just all of them. The way that I treated you in front of other people, thinking that I was ashamed of you.
Yeah.
The way that it seemed I literally put the opinion of masses ahead of you. Like, and I talk about that in another song later on the record. And I'll unpack that. I talk about...
Were you thinking about that night when you wrote that lyric?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I never...
Oh, yeah. I have such regrets about that night. Like, I have no regrets about marrying you. But I have so many regrets about that night. And that was, it's just like one of those...
Me too. I have...
You see it all the time,
I wish
though.
that I weren't insecure.
Yeah.
I wish that I had just been like, that was an amazing
Great
song.
job, babe.
Of course.
I don't even care what women
so
you were
thrilled.
sleeping with. No, I wasn't. But like, I don't even care about all your previous relationships, which
That
I know.
you may be having with this person right now backstage. I don't know.
Oh man, wow. But yeah, when you don't know a person, I mean, that is one of the dangers of getting married to someone you don't know.
There's dangers in getting married to people. Like,
Absolutely.
I was friends with someone who, she had dated this guy for years and years, and then she was married for 3 years, and then they get divorced.
Right.
And like,
yeah,
all those years didn't matter. Like,
Yeah.
it didn't help her that she dated him for 4 years before getting married. Like, it didn't help you thought that this person was really wonderful, and they knew your parents and all the stuff, like all the boxes were checked. So like, that doesn't ensure anything.
Right. No doubt. And I will say, just to leave with like kind of a nugget, like, I will say that like, if anybody asks us the secret to marriage, the secret is you got to know that God says yes. You got to know that God gives you the nod. And if you're already married and you don't know, ask him. But like, here's the thing, like the reason I will never leave Eileen is because God told me she was the one for me, and our life keeps getting better. So like, God's brilliant and his vision is long, right? So like, even though we're going to take you through it, we went through hell and we went through some of the darkest, lowest times in our relationship the worst times of my entire life. But because I know that God's super smart, way smarter than me, and he told me that she was the one, I trust him. Like, I mean, look at the brilliance of the world that he made. He knows how to make things work. So
He's smarter.
Than us. He can see farther. He knows. And like, my life is so amazing. My relationship, our children, everything that we're, about, everything that we're doing, like, but, and that's the thing, like, and I've had evidences of this truth all along the way, right? You are such an amazing mom to young children. Like, watching you be a mom was just mind blowing. Like, I know sometimes you feel like you did a terrible job. I thought you were amazing. I thought you were incredible. And
well, it's always a mixed bag.
Right.
Right?
But like, watching you parent our children, watching you raise them, spend all the time with them, teaching them to read, banging your head against the wall, teaching them to read. Like, I just fell deeper and deeper in love with you. But that's because not because I trusted my ability to pick you out. I trust God's ability to pick you out.
Yeah.
And we've had tough times in the last couple of years. Like, tough times don't stop. But I have a faith that God loves me. So that's one. Based on the cross, I believe God loves me. And two, he's really smart. So like, even though I am dumb and I make messes, his vision is long. So my relationship with you is just continuing to get better and better, because as I love you, you grow. And as you love me, I grow. And like, that cyclical thing, plus God's love pouring in as we get deeper rooted in his love for us. Yeah. There's more love for us to give to each other. Everything's just getting better and better. Yeah. But like, if we had given up when it was hard, we would never have known this.
Absolutely.
We never would have known. So you have to trust something, just like in AA, you have to trust in something higher than yourself. That's like rule number 1, I think. I've never been to AA, but like, it's like, you gotta have trust that there's somebody smarter than you that says, yes, this is the right path. And that's the secret. And we'll unpack it more in episodes to come.